Hello, welcome to another tutorial. So this section is all based around domestic life, hence the array of domestic objects. We're going to look at still life, and we're going to look at still life, putting still life together using shapes and proportions. So still life is kind of time immemorial. It's been used as artistic practice. And it's a really great way to practice your drawing, and a very easy thing to set up indoors as well. And you can also make it as easy or as difficult as you would like. But what I would advise is using a mix of shapes and sizes and kind of lengths and thicknesses and widths and that kind of thing. And yeah, there's no hard and kind of fast rules about how to set something up, but I would, just making sure my camera's okay, yep, I would mix it up a bit. Kitchen things are great because they comes in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. And I think with this, instead of it being a very quick, have a go for 10 minutes and then leave it, I would recommend spending quite a bit of time on this. Get yourself a good setup, get some music on, and get a nice relaxing atmosphere going so that you can really throw yourself into it. Not hugely easy, but very, very good exercise for practicing and developing your kind of drawing technique and practice. So we're going to use shapes and proportions to kind of put things together. So very, very roughly, just kind of put this down on the paper, just making sure you can see the pad. And basically what I've done is, if you've maybe seen it in other tutorial videos, I've used square, circle, ellipse, triangle, rectangle. So all of these shapes I've kind of got in my armoury, I've got in my head, and they're kind of what I'm thinking about every time I look at different areas. And that is the trick with still life. It is all about looking and kind of absorbing as much of the information that's in front of you as you can. The more time you spend looking, the less time you're likely to be spending making mistakes, because the typical thing to do is to look very quickly and then start putting things down on the paper without the fact that you've actually recorded them very well visually to kind of transfer them to the paper. So in actual fact, it's almost worth just sitting for, sounds a bit bonkers, 5-10 minutes, and just taking the whole thing in, seeing what kind of sits next to each other, seeing how big the potato masher is compared to the wooden spoons, seeing how big the potato masher is compared to the width of the glass jar. Glass jar is maybe just a little bit wider from where I'm sitting. So just kind of taking as much as you can. And then all I've done to kind of get the bread bin in, and I'm going for the drumstick hold again. And I just had a chat with one of you guys today that's taking part in the workshops, and there's a bit of an issue with pencil holding. Not an issue, you just, however you want to hold the pencil, however it's comfortable, but if you can just loosely just kind of grip it in your fingers, whichever way it works, because as soon as you start to do this business, you start to get too close to your work and you can't get any perspective. So the thing with this is to work right across the book, as big as you can, right off the edges of the paper. And I think that's really good practice when you're working in notebooks anyway, is work right off the edge. Because when you're working in tiny, tiny little spaces and you make a mistake in that tiny space, the whole thing shows up. So work as big as you can, sit right back, and really take time putting the marks down and enjoy it. The loose feel of the pencil as you're building up the lines. So we've got a lot of ellipses here, and how ellipses work is when they are closer to your eye level, they're flatter, and the further they get away, they become more rounded, and the same as it above as well. So literally all I've done to put this together is, and we're not actually going for a finished accurate drawing with this. What I'd quite like to see is almost like a still life constructed on the paper. That would work a lot better for your drawing practice. So maybe set it up, have a go for 20 minutes, see what happens, have a break, go back to it, have another go, and be patient. It's not easy, but make sure all the time that you're working, you're looking. Ellipses are kind of a typical thing where you draw what's in your head and not what's in front of you. So that's something that where people kind of trip up when they're drawing. So they see an ellipse and then they just draw a round circle. So it's not a circle, it's a circle tipped up. So you'll get ellipses probably with whatever you do in the kitchen. And then all I've done then really, because we're looking at proportions, is kind of take into consideration the wideness of the top of that bread bin and then the width of the top of the red vase, which is I think about 1/3 I worked out. At the end of the day, if that isn't sitting in the right place, but you've got it the right size, that's really valuable. You know, that's a step in the right direction. If you draw in the still life, things are getting into proportion, but things aren't sitting exactly in the right place, don't worry about it. It's not a problem at all. And if you can get a bit of glass with something sitting inside glass, that's quite good, because that breaks the object up and puts it into different places. So that makes it quite a good thing to draw. You've got things like the letters, which you can divide up into rough squares, and you know the D is just sitting, probably won't look the same on the video as it does for me. And then once you've got this rough structure, I think that is the side of the bread bin coming down here. Put the lines in slightly harder so that you can see. So I'm not concerned really with whether these are sitting in front or behind of the things that they should be. Because I mean, you know, doing a still life, if you're going to do a painting over the top of it, or if you're going to charcoal over the top of it, it doesn't really matter anyway, if you don't get things in the right places. But what I would say is, try not to make things up. Things might not look like they should. That's what kind of happens when you're drawing. Things sometimes look a bit odd and the angles look a bit strange. You're better drawing those than trying to represent them, or trying to kind of make something up that doesn't work because it's not actually what's in front of you. So a big part of this is really about seeing and and just observing and just seeing how you get on with it. And I think importantly is probably to lower your expectations about what you're going to have at the end, because it's quite a tricky task. So don't expect to have an amazing first drawing. You might have an amazing first drawing, but then you might struggle after that a little bit, but it's difficult, quite time consuming, but I would definitely set up so that you maybe can dip in and dip out of, or set a still life up in an area in the house where you can leave it and keep going back to it. I'm actually going to do another video on this as well about negative space, so the two might be worth watching together. Got a pan coming in the corner there. So don't expect to be working miracles the first 2 or 3 times. And what I would say is, and like I say with a lot of the different things that I do, is try it a few times, try it over and over again. You know, if there's a landscape that you really love, go back to that landscape, keep going back to it, try it in different mediums, and just be proactive. Be proactive and don't listen to the inner critic going on and on about, everything that you're putting down on the paper is not working. Forget about that person. So the aim of this is to get over the fear of the blank paper, and that's why it's good to completely fill the space up, quite quickly if you can, keeping your lines really, really light. then there's no need for an eraser. Hopefully, you know, that's something that we can forget about using all the time as an eraser, and just kind of constructing drawings with very light lines and, you know, kind of working that way rather than every time we put a line down wanting to rub it off. So get over that fear of the blank paper and, you know, dive into it. Be proactive and fill the double page full of lines. Get lots of construction lines. What tends to happen is if you've got lots of lines sitting around, some of the time, if you've got 3 or 4 lines, one of those lines you'll notice is actually the line that's in the right place. If you're rubbing these other lines off all the time, you lose them. So you've got nothing to measure against. And try it. It's good fun. And then retry it. And then try it again. Thank you very much.